Now Ronan Collins meets the Dublin man who shared a very...
I think the first picture I ever went to was Pennies from Heaven. I went to the Capitol Theatre. I just liked Bing, and then I started buying his records. He was a prolific writer, though. I have 401 letters from Bing. No one in the world, his secretary told me when I met her finally. She said, George O'Reilly, you see those fingers? Her name was Lillian Murphy. She wasn't Irish, but she was Lillian. Those fingers are worn to the bone, writing those letters to you. And he was the first man I ever met with a dictaphone in his pocket. And in the other pocket he had envelopes, self-addressed, post-paid, and when he dictaphone anything like, Lillian, remind me to do this when I get back and buy this or bought this I want. And he'd stick it in an envelope and he'd throw it in a post box wherever he was, London, Paris, anything. Yeah. Bing has this fierce itinerary between radio records, appearances. Although he didn't do appearances, as you know, he never did concert appearances like Sinatra.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Sinatra built his fame on live concert appearances where he would, with the tremendous voice he had, would build the people up into the, with the frenzy which he did, those Madison Square Gardens and all those huge concerts. I started writing the theme of my letters after I got to know him. First thing you see he did for me was he'd ask me how what things and although he'd never met me, but he got to know me through that I was a bit of a good letter writer myself. I must have been, because he took a shine to me, and Lillian told me afterwards that he'd often come in and say anything from George this week, and he wrote me this year and he said, a handwritten letter I have from him, very few, most of them were dictaphoned, and he said he'd done Little Boy Lost in Paris, and I flew to London, and I got a telegram from him. I was at home living in Chantal Road. I moved to Chantal Road. I went up in the world for a while. And the telegram read, would like to meet you and can see you London Hotel, Saturday, 12 noon, Savoy Hotel, London, 12 noon. Signed, Bing. So, of course, I took off the night before, stayed at the Irish Club. Do you remember the Irish Club in Eaton Square? Sitting there. And at about 11:30 I was sitting just in the Savoy Hotel, and it was a huge foyer, and I was sitting up, and I was naturally nervous. Here was me meeting Bing, and I sat there, and the next was a bit of a kerfuffle at the door, and I saw him coming in the door and going over to the cashier, and he was cashing American Express. So I just watched him, and he came over. And he came straight over towards me, see? And he said, you're George O'Reilly. And I said, how did you know? He said, you look Irish, he said, first of all. And secondly, your initials are in your briefcase. I had a briefcase full of records for him to sign, and GOR was on the side of it.
These personal letters that you got from Bing down through the years are absolutely extraordinary. I've had a look through some of the 400 of them, and I love this one from March the 2nd, 1956, and Bing saying that his plans to go to Europe are not definite yet, at least not definite enough to give you any idea when I might be in Ireland. But I have taken note of all you had to say in your letter recently received, and will certainly give you all kinds of advance notice about my approximate arrival in Ireland, when and if I come. But listen to this. Today the concert singers from Dublin are having lunch with me here at the studio. There's 14 in the party, and then I'm going to take them out on the set and let them watch us work for a while, and maybe they will get a kick out of meeting Grace Kelly, Frank Sinatra, Louis Armstrong, etc. I heard they were in town, and a priest named Father Willie Murphy from Buddhistown there in Dublin, a priest I travelled with 2 or 3 years ago in Europe, wrote me and asked me to give them a call, which I have done, and we will try and entertain them this afternoon. Also hope to catch their concert, which will be tomorrow night here in Hollywood. There is some chance I may go to Palm Springs, in which case I wouldn't be able to hear them sing. I hear they're very fine. We'll try and get a picture or so with them, and maybe you'll see it in one of the Dublin papers. George, I will let you know directly I know anything about Europe. Hate to make this note so short, but I don't have a great deal of time this morning. Best wishes to you and your family. As ever, Bing. Talking about the set of High Society with Sinatra and Grace Kelly and Louis Armstrong. And what were you doing at that stage in your life? What were you working at? Were you in business or?
I was in Irish record factors. We were, I went from the Tara record shop to Irish record factors. But you see, the first thing that I ever knew was, one day I was at home, a man called Adam Rees, he died only about 3 or 4 years ago. I got a phone call. This is White Plains calling. Do you remember White Plains had to call American calls in and out? There's a call for a Mr. George O'Reilly at 5 Tara Street. And I was at home and I said, America? Who could be calling me from America? I mean, it was just out of this world. And a voice said, my name is Adam Rees. I said, Adam. He said, yes. He said, do you know that you're mentioned in Ed Sullivan's column? The famous Ed Sullivan. Before he went radio, he had a famous column in the New York News. And I got the clipping years later. You see, Bing had this habit. He used to sit down, because I didn't see this until I went to his house. And if he saw a good show, if he had seen You Now on the Joe Donald show running, he'd have gone home and he would have written you a letter before he went to bed saying how he liked your show, the orchestra was great, the arrangements were great. You know, it was really a credit. And of course, Bing's favourite, Ronan, was Nat King Cole.
And this is about Nat King Cole. This is Ed Sullivan, The Passing Show. Recently we had Nat King Cole on our show. A few days later, Nat had a letter from Bing Crosby. Caught you on Ed's show and I think it's one of the best singing spots I've ever seen on TV. The selection of songs, of course, was great and Ray Bloch's musical support was fine. Hope you have a very successful tour in England. I know you will because you're a big favourite there. A friend of mine in Ireland, George O'Reilly, has a record store at 5 Tara Street, Dublin. He wrote me recently when he learned that you were likely to play there, asking if it would be possible for you to come over and autograph some records for a half hour or so someday. If he contacts you, at least tell him I wrote, and I'm sure if you can't make it, he'll understand, and so will I. Bing. But now, did you meet Nat King Cole?
Yeah, Nat King Cole came and opened my record shop. Fella rang me and said, I'm in Lou Grade's office in the London Palladium, and I want to tell you that Nat King Cole was in there. And when he heard I was from Ireland, he said, do you know a fella called George O'Reilly? Do I know him, says he? He's working for me. What, says Nat King Cole? Yes, he works for me. He manages my bottom in Dublin. Will you tell him Bing Crosby asked me to pay, and I'm going to visit him. He has a record shop. He says. So a fella rang me and said, do you know that Nat King Cole is coming to visit? So, yes, he's coming to the Royal in a couple of weeks and he's going to go around to visit your shop. So like a flash, I closed the shop. And then I took a hat to the Evening Mail and the Evening Press. Grand opening by Nat King Cole, you see.
So Bing Crosby's favourite singer, Nat King Cole,
Always.
opened your record shop.
Yeah. He came
Well, if that's not a cue for a song, I don't know what is.
And, of course, if you're playing a song, play Stardust. Nat King Cole recorded Stardust in 1957. And I visited Bing's house in 1962. Bing invited me out. And Bing used to sit on the sofa just like that, and he'd have his arms stretched out, Ronan, and he'd close his eyes. And I was sitting here in an armchair, and he'd say, George, that's singing, and then you'd hear Nat King Cole, and now the purple dust of twilight time steals across my head. And Bing would say, that's singing, George, that is singing. And he always loved Nat King Cole.